prepared to get by Squadron Hawk, to get by Timely Reinforcements tokens. One thing that is interesting about Samuel Barth deck, though, is that he actually has 2 copies of Mental Misstep in his main deck. He's not playing Spell Pierce, which is a relatively unusual choice, but one that could potentially serve him very well in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a card you normally bring in against Mono Red. You get their Goblin Guide on the first turn, and it can be absolutely huge. So it still looks like Sam won the dice roll here, led on Seachrome Coast and passed the turn, and Charles leads on a mountain, like a fetch land
Probably
mountain.
fetching, giving it a shuffling, yes. So, and he's at 19, so... So Gindy here, he obviously wants to have a Goblin Guide, and that it is, and it gets Misstep.
And that's the play.
And that's what we were just talking about, how powerful it is to be able to stop the Goblin Guide in turn 1, even stopping a Lavamancer in turn 1, anything that's going to get the red deck on the board before you have a chance to develop your own. And Squadron Hawk turn 2 comes down for Samuel Barth. And that's a pretty big deal. Squadron Hawk's one of the really important cards to allow the Caw-Blade deck to put pressure on Mono Red, so they can't just draw the game out and be able to ultimately just win with burn spells.
And that's pretty much the ideal start, is to be able to turn 1 misstep their 1-drop followed by Squadron Hawk out of a Caw-Blade deck. Not much more you can ask for than that.
I mean, he didn't even have to pay life. He was able to pay blue mana to counter it. He's sitting here at 20 life with the Hawk in play and more in hand. So a very good start for the game for Caw-Blade.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise that Goblin Guide would have dealt probably 4 points of damage this turn, potentially 6 or 8 points over the next couple turns, and now it's
keeping Goblin Guide off the table is extremely important, because it allows the Caw-Blade player to, if they want to, just use Squadron Hawk to just gain life. If Goblin Guide was in play, he could chump block, whatever, but like he's just behind. He's taking damage each turn, and it turns each of Gindy's removal spells into effectively Searing Blazes.
Right.
Anytime if he tries to double block, or if he holds back to be able to try to protect himself with Hawks. And here he's actually the one on the aggressive. Gindy's down to 17. Sam has 2 Hawks in play, and while that Shrine of Burning Rage threatens to be very dangerous if the game goes long, the Hawks are going to have something to say about whether that goes long. And
it's a good one to draw, Forked Bolt.
Yeah, Forked Bolt with that Shrine in particular powers up the Shrine and gets both those Hawks down. And Lavamancer comes down, also going to help keep Hawks off the board.
That was a very nice Forked Bolt. That was the one out of Charles' deck. And there's a Dismember from Sam Barth, get rid of that Lavamancer. So the 1 Forked Bolt knocks down those 2 Hawks, which is huge. And let's see, there are 2 Into the Royals in Sam Barth's deck, but there aren't a lot of other ways to stop that Shrine of Burning Rage. In fact, there are no spell skites, nothing. So
to be fair, Sam is at 20 life still, so it's going to take a while before that Shrine is all that threatening.
16 after the Dismember, but yeah.
Yes. So Sam plays a Squadron Hawk, but he's stuck on 3 land. Sam is playing the what has sort of become industry standard, the Phantasmal Image Sun Titan version of Caw-Blade. He doesn't have Hero of Blade Holder, he doesn't have Blade Splicer. He has he has a Merry Angel for sort of mid game, and then the sort of biggest of late games with Titan Image. That said, the Titan version needs a lot more mana to operate than some of the Hero version. If he's sitting here stuck on land for very long, he's not really going to be able to do very much.
Right, and Sam playing 27 lands, but still manages miss his 4th land drop. Shows you how mana hungry this deck is. You want all the lands you can get between your Tectonic Edges, Colonnades. I guess he has no Inkmoth Nexus, but the lists with Nexus definitely want it. So Sam finds his 4th land, cracks a Misty Rainforest, drops down to 15. And maybe we'll see double Hawk here. And while
2 Hawks already dead, so...
Oh, so a Mirror Angel...
A Mirror Angel would be, it's not clear you actually would want to play an Mirror Angel here. It's just going to die. Gindy has a fistful of cards. It looks like he has like 3 cards in hand, actually. But he would at least, I would imagine, want to get some sort of value out of his Angel. There, Jace Balerion. Now that he has double blue.
And Sam just opts to -1 draw card.
Jace Balerion's a card that a lot of people misevaluate in a matchup like this. A lot of people think, well, they can just burn your Jace. How good can it possibly be? I mean, that's like cycling a Renewed Faith. For those of you who weren't playing when Renewed Faith was a big deal, Renewed Faith was a card that you could cycle for white and 1, and when you cycled it, you gained 2 life. When you hard cast it, you gained 6 life. And it was actually a super popular card in control decks, just because it was a card that could give you this minor value against aggressive decks by giving life when you cycled it, or potentially gaining a lot of life if you actually just hard cast it. Jace Beleren in a matchup like this will often draw you a card and save you 2 damage. So it's very similar if it just dies to Cycling Renewed Faith. Granted, it's a bit more expensive and you have to cast it during your main phase, but it's still just a fine effect.
Charles goes for Incinerate in Sam's end step, notably just throwing it at Sam, it looks like.
Yeah, and this it looks like it's going to be a Chandra's Phoenix if he's having 3 mana here. It could be Stagger Shock. He could be Stagger Shocking Sam.
Oh, yeah, the Stagger Shock. Just going to up that Shrine. And although, I mean, Charles hasn't done a ton, that Shrine is just going to get so big so fast. I think it's really interesting. You can play Jace a lot of different ways in this matchup. You can +2 him a lot of the time and just, give them 1 card once and then just, force them to use that card to deal with him plus another card. You get up on cards. You can use it on the -1 Renewed Faith mode. A lot of options.
If you look, Gindy is not attacking, he's not hitting Jace here. He's actually just sending all this damage straight to the face.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it makes complete sense given that he has that Shrine in play. A lot of people, I think, make the mistake of trying to fight Jace always. They always attack down Jace. They always, burn Jace. They are just, far too aggressive when it comes to, and there's an Oblivion Ring. That's going to seriously reduce the power of that Shrine. Consider it's totally gone. Off to Oblivion.
Very much reduce the power of that Shrine. Yeah, and now second Squadron Hawk comes down for Sam.
What Charles wants here is an Anarchy to kill both Hawks in the Oblivion Ring, but that hasn't been legal for a long, long time. So he gets to replay his Stagger Shock here, goes to the face. Sam down to 8 life. Gindy, in much more need of gas now that Shrine is gone.
Yeah, I mean, that
Stagger Shock
Shrine was nearly lethal, right? I couldn't tell how many counters were on it.
It was up to 7 counters, 6. It was 1 die, so it's probably about 6 counters.
Yeah. So Sam down to 6 life now. Charles still not out of it by any means, but certainly going to have to work for a little bit without that Shrine there. And Sam is going to throw away the Jace, give himself another card out of it. Pretty good deal, 3 cards off that Jace.
Sort of like a concentrate on suspend.
Like an Aeon Chronicler. Something weird like that. All right, Sam serves him for 2. We'll drop Charles's life down to 11. And here comes Gideon Jura. Now that card is a huge card against the red decks. Granted, Charles doesn't have many creatures, so it doesn't as good as it could have been. But still, Hero of Oxid Ridge is nullified now, and he can turn that into 8 damage next turn.
Goes back to the face.
Yep, Stagger Shock back to Sam. Sam drops to 4.
Life, I believe.
Yep, 4 life.
And a Lava Mancer. I think this is potentially now. Not trying to draw out a misstep. So Sam can just ship his Gideon in this turn.
Yep.
Although he may actually just want to keep it up. If he attacks with his 2 Hawks, he puts Charles down to 9 life, and then he's still actually not lethal next turn unless he activates Gideon as a creature.
I mean, it looks like Sam's hand is full of lands in a Day of Judgment.
He does protect himself from Chandra's Phoenix by ticking up on Gideon.
Right.
This looks like he's just daying.
Interesting. Okay. Just daying away. It seems like you would have dayed and then activated Gideon and attacked or something like that. I mean,
you're putting Charles dead next turn if you do it that way. This way, you give him additional draw step, and I mean that draw step is potentially very, very dangerous.
Right. Yeah. Well. Worked out pretty well for.
Yeah. Oh. Did he not?
Did he not move Gideon upwards?
Gideon. What just happened?
Wait. What?
Okay. Well.
So he didn't use Gideon. All right.
He ticked up Gideon. I thought that I moved up.
I mean, it's also possible that he did and he just conceded.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, I was gonna say it worked out well for Sam, but apparently not.
Apparently, it didn't work out nearly as well as we thought for him.
Very strange. All right. Well, so going to the sideboards here, let's look at Gindy's list first. So we're talking about Combust as a card he could potentially bring in. Maybe.
I honestly think that Gindy does not sideboard.
I agree.
I think he changes no cards. He hasn't seen anything like Spellskite out of his opponent's deck. He hasn't even seen a sword. I mean, one of the cards that you possibly bring in here is Manic Vandal. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, Sam's deck actually has no targets for Manic Vandal. He has no Spellskites. He has no swords. So. Bringing in Manic Vandal would just be bringing in Grey Ogre. So the other cards in the sideboard you might want, I mean, Dismember. There's really just nothing.
Yeah.
So if I were Gindy, I would go to my sideboard to make it look like I had something, and then just present, which is what I imagine he's probably doing.
Yeah.
Sam, on the other hand, has a lot of sideboard cards.
Yeah, I mean, so 4 timely reinforcements, 100% coming in. And then after that, you could go for, he's got 4 Flash Freeze, 2 Dispel, a Day of Judgments that are all options. Even Azure Mage isn't the worst if you want to block Goblin Guide if you're on the play. Although, so you can get Searing Blaze and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, the cards in his deck that are relatively weak, Flash Freeze is better than Mana Leak, clearly, although it can't stop Shrine. He has Oblivion Ring and Into the Royal. I think I keep both of those just because you need ways to deal Shrine, and neither of them are that bad at stopping creatures. Even an unkick Into the Royal on Goblin Guide against Teetering Peaks can save you a lot of life. Day of Judgment's pretty bad here. As we saw in that game, Day of Judgment traded 2 of his Hawks in the Day of Judgment for a Grim Lavamancer.
Yep.
Gindy's playing. Well, he doesn't know that Gindy has Hero. He hasn't seen Gindy actually cast Hero.
Sure.
Hero's become fairly standard in red decks.
Yeah.
So he may keep in some number of Day of Judgment. Dismember is a weird card in this matchup.
It's very strange.
Card that can save you a lot of life if you kill a Goblin Guy that you wouldn't have an answer for, but it's also a card that is costing you life against a deck that's goal is to burn you.
Right. And if you draw it in the late game, it's just a dead draw.
The Phantasmal Images, I think, are among the weaker cards.
I think likely Mana Leak will also come out too.
Mm-hmm.
Mana Leak, Phantasmal Image. How many creatures do you want to cut? Do you want to cut some of your Planeswalkers? Do you want all your Gideons for sure? Do you want Jace Balerion? Or do you want to keep Renewed Faith?
I think Jace Balerion is pretty good here. Granted, if he's bringing in 4 timely reinforcements, he just has much more powerful things to cast on turn 3.
Right.
So you have to pay attention to your mana curve pretty carefully. Sun Titan's another card that's pretty bad here.
Super slow.
You need to be able to kill your opponent. But having Sun Titan and Gideon, seems like Gideon and Colonnade are generally just enough to kill them, and that you don't need access to Sun Titan. So I think if were I sideboarding here, I would consider taking out the 2 Phantasmal Images, the 2 Sun Titans, and the 4 Mana Leaks for 4 Flash Freeze and 4 timely reinforcements.
Yep. I think that's pretty much how I do it too. I don't think you could bring in Dispel. I don't think you could really bring in anything else. You just have so many cards to take out, and that's one of the issues I think players have, where you have a lot of cards you could bring in, but you can't over sideboard. You're playing all these cards you don't necessarily need. It looks like Sam did just forget to take up Gideon that turn. So
yeah, he just didn't use it.
Yeah, that's the information we have.
Wow.
So.
All right.
Awkward, especially because he timed it right with the Day of Judgment and everything too.
Wow, I just sort of assumed he had used it. So
yeah, well, so much for that. I bet Sam's probably kicking himself a little over that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean that's definitely one of those little things that can certainly cost you. It's very easy to have a plan in your head and just sort of forget part of it. And, I mean, seriously though, I remember in Worlds 2002, I was playing Carlos Fermal, who was the eventual world champion for top 8, and I just didn't Mirari my Haunting Echoes, and he countered it. And he didn't even think anything of it. I just cast Haunting Echoes, he envelops it, we go on, and I'm sitting there like I had Mirari in play, 1,000,000 mana, because I had coffers in 8 swamps or something. If I just say Mirari it, it's totally different. But my brain just snapped
skip
for a
that
moment
step.
and just didn't do it.
You just have these tiny mental relapse.
I mean, Sam clearly had a plan there. Yeah, otherwise he would have Dayed then attacked if he hadn't planned to tick up his Gideon to save himself from exactly that. So.
Reminds me of Grand Prix Atlanta, same place earlier this year, where LSV in a feature match was playing fairies. Played Creeping Tar Pit on turn 1, turn 2, Thoughtseize right down his opponent's hand, and then it didn't do anything. And Sam Black is watching. He's like, I don't understand how could anybody possibly do that. That's the dumbest thing ever. And then 2 rounds later in a feature match, Sam Black does the exact same thing. Just goes Creeping Tar Pit, Thoughtseize right down your hand, and go. Forgets to play a land.
That's pretty. That's pretty hilarious.
It is easy to make those small mistakes. However, I would recommend not making them.
So we're back for game 2. Players are sideboarded. Sam starts off with a Plains. That is not going to let him pay the mana cost on Mental Misstep, but he will get an island for his troubles from that attacking Goblin Guide.
Yep, and looks like no Mental Misstep from Sam. So the Goblin Guide comes down, gives Sam a land, and see if Sam has the turn 2 Squadron Hawk here. The cards that you're looking for in your hand in this matchup, if you're the Cobblade player, are like Timely Reinforcements, Mental Misstep, maybe a removal spell, Squadron Hawk. So I'd imagine you probably kept the hand with Timely Reinforcements in it.
mostly timely reinforcements. That's the
Yeah,
the most important card. But I mean, if we look at the if we look at the build of Gindy's deck and the build of a lot of the red decks that have been successful recently, cards like Chandra's Phoenix, cards like Hero of Oxid Ridge do a lot to significantly blunt the impact of timely reinforcements.
Right. Grimmalov Mancer down for Charles Gindy, and Sam has the Flash Freeze. Okay.
So unsurprisingly, he brought that one in.
Let's see if we have a turn 3 reinforcements for Sam here. And 3 mana. Okay, yep, there's a timely reinforcements. So Charles Gindy will has more creatures and more life, as red decks usually do. Sam will go up to 22, and Sam will get 3 tokens.
So do you think they had the impact of this card in mind when they named it, so people could make that timely that reinforcement sure was timely, when they rip it off the top when they're about to die.
It's certainly one of the more appropriate named cards in recent memory.
It really is.
I mean, it does exactly what the card's supposed to do, which is always a nice little melding of flavor and function.
It is exactly what the card has to do: make players playing beatdown decks cry. Because I mean, it kind of does that. Like, oh no, not again. So Gindy deciding, is it even worth attacking here? This is one of those weird spots. Playing a deck with Hero of Oxid Ridge, as I have been wont to do in the past few months, you often are in the situation where you need to make the decision: do I attack with my creature that can potentially trade with one of their 1 power guys, or 2 of their 1 power guys, or whatever, or do I wait and try and hero them? And it's not necessarily an easy question to answer. Here, Gindy is choosing to hold back. And we don't know the contents of his hand. Maybe he has a hero, and the Shrine gets Oblivion Ringed. But if he attacks, in particular, the fact that he has Goblin Guide is a big negative to him wanting to attack. Because even if his opponent just chump blocks, even if his opponent just block with 1, block with 1, block with 1, that's a lot of Goblin Guide flips he's getting out of that deal.
Yeah, and like you said, with Goblin Guide, it's not just the fact that you can trade with it, but the fact that Sam could just draw extra cards.
Right. He doesn't want to just give him a bunch of free cards. Yeah. He's already gotten a ton of value from the timely reinforcements. He doesn't need to give him any more.
I'm pretty sure I see a hero in Charles' hand. I think one of the biggest things for Charles here is he needs to find 2 more lands to get that down. But I agree with Charles' play. I'm not attacking there. I mean, if you have hero in your hand, a second Goblin Guide. All right, so he's going to play a second guy and then attack with both. Reveals a Jace, so Sam will get no advantage off the top of his deck.
Is this a Dismember?
Dismember one, probably double block the other.
I think that's most likely it.
Or triple block.
Yeah, triple block.
Makes sense. And that was not what Charles Gindy wanted to see.
The thing is, that's not too bad for him. I mean, granted, obviously he'd much rather just hit with both Goblin Guides, but he's removed a Dismember from his opponent's hand, which can potentially deal with something like a hero or a Chandra's Phoenix. That's what he didn't want to see. Gideon going down on the other side of the board, and Gideon most likely going to use his abilities each turn this game. Sam very much aware of the way that the last game played out. So Charles still stuck on 2 mountains.
Yeah, and even if Charles had 4 lands and a hero here, he would still be in a pretty bad spot. That Gideon is just gigantic.
He's a bit behind already. It's very difficult. Gideon is one of the nightmare cards for mono red. It's a card that just can soak up so much damage, and is very, very difficult to kill.
Yeah, I mean unless you have the burn spells to burn them out, it just does so much. Plus, you can kill off some of the like hero. Like it's one of the ways you can easily deal with a Hero of Oxid Ridge. It clears the way. It creates a quick clock in the longer game. It just does so much against the red deck. And
here it comes,
just see him smashing in.
I mean, this is one of the most important uses of Gideon is just kill you. I mean, it's really something you see people hide behind their Gideon so much and get them whittled down, when realistically that Gideon can kill their opponent in a few attacks.
I mean, I think watching you play Cobblade is really where I started to learn. You just have to be aggressive with this deck so often. You just attack with your Gideons, you attack with your Colonnades, put them on 2-turn clock, and if they don't find exactly what they're looking for, they die.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, Gindy's pinched on mana. What is the worst he can do? I mean, what is Sam afraid of, given that he has the board that he has, and Gindy has 2 lands?
Right, exactly. I mean, a lot of players, I think, I agree, would just take up Gideon. I feel protected. I like this little tortoise shell I'm in. But when you attack with the Gideon, you just put Charles on a couple turn clock, and
One thing that has changed about Magic in recent years, in particular with the introduction of Planeswalkers, is the importance of being proactive. It's the importance of having a plan that punishes your opponent for stumbling, that puts pressure on them and prevents them from getting to whatever their long game is. And Gideon is an example of sort of both ends of that. It protects you against your opponent being proactive. It forces your opponent to be proactive to kill it in a lot of situations, and it lets you have that proactive plan itself. It's one of the reasons that Gideon is one of the best Planeswalkers ever.
Yeah. I mean, 5-mana Planeswalkers are usually a rough to see constructed play, but Gideon has a ton of it. It just shows you how powerful he is. He's a creature, he kills things, makes them attack you, and all of his abilities are utilized by a variety of decks.
I think people were very surprised to see it in our modern sideboard last weekend, but it was one of the best cards there.
I remember I was in Sam Black's room testing the Poison matchup. We're like, uh-oh, is he going to bring Gideon here? It seems awful for us.
It was a little too expensive.
A little too expensive, but we were worried about you guys just +2ing it and be like, this is a problem.
It's pretty hard for you to beat that. You have to, I mean, it's another thing you have to bounce. But
oh man, yeah, the card is very good. Expected to see play in Modern for sure. It looks like Charles is going to serve in. I think he's attacking Jace here. And Sam is just going to double block the Ember Hauler. Charles' board, 3 lands Ember Hauler versus Sam's Gideon, Hawks, Soldier Token, and Jace.
And 5 land.
And 5 lands, yeah. So Sam blocks, Charles incinerates one of the blockers, essentially 2-for-1ing Sam. And then lightning bolts away the Jace Bolera. Working hard.
So here he is left with a tapped Ember Hauler, which may probably won't die to Gideon. Gideon probably more interested in either protecting Sam or killing Charles. that Ember Hauler is of no concern to him.
Yeah, although to note, Charles is tapped out right now, so if Sam
he couldn't use it. He couldn't use the ability to sacrifice it in response.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the things Gideon does too that's really awesome, and that's part of the reason why Charles had to kill Jace, is it protects your other Planeswalkers really nicely. Right. Back when Jace the Mind Sculptor...
Oh, he is just killing the Ember Hauler. Interesting.
Yeah, so just going to play, I guess, a defensive game. There's some more Squadron Hawks. Yeah, back when Jace was legal, that combo was just so unbelievable because you just protect your Mind Sculptor behind the Gideon.
Well, Jace is still legal. He just played one.
Well, yeah.
Still good with that Jace
Sculptor
too.
A little different, but yeah, still with that Jace. I love that.
I mean, when you could play Elspeth, Gideon, and Jace, that was. Whew.
Elspeth is another very powerful white.
You don't need to tell me about how good Elspeth is.
I know you guys have a thing. I won't spoil it. Let's see. So 2 Hawks in play for Sam Barth. Gindy draws. Let's see if he finally found his 4th land. If he found
it looks like he drew a Teetering Peaks, which is his 4th land, but not the 4th land he really needs.
No, if he had a 4th mountain, he could play that Oxid Rage, make those Squadron Hawks unable to block and go right for Gideon, but
I mean, not
the case.
Gideon, I believe, is at 6 loyalty, and Sam does have 2 blue mana open, so, or at least 2 mana open that he could cast Flash Freeze, or Mana Leak if he still has Mana Leak in his deck.
Right. And Charles is just going to pass the turn back to Sam. Now we see, all right, Sam's going to tap 1 and Tech Edge down that Teetering Peaks, keeping Charles off hero mana.
That's definitely a heads-up play. You don't see a lot of Caw-Blade players aren't nearly aggressive enough with their Tectonic Edges.
Agreed.
One of the advantages of Caw-Blade is how it is able to be proactive and aggressive, and in a situation like this, he's just keeping Charles off of being able to cast any of the spells that he's really scared of. Hero of Oxid Ridge, be able to play something, pay for Mana Leak if he still has Mana Leak, just cast multiple spells a turn. He's obviously in an advantage position here. He has Gideon in play. He's the one at higher life total, so he really wants to be able to maintain the aggressive position.
Charles sends a bolt at that Gideon in response to it activating, dropping its loyalty down a little bit, but still not enough to kill it. And Charles just backs it in.
So it looks like we're going to a game 3.
Yeah, and really, I mean, Sam could have had both those games potentially. Game 1 likely was going to go in his favor, so I'm sure
it's unclear. He was at 4 life against a red deck, so
it's true. But if we consider 2 of the cards were Goblin Guide Teetering Peaks, I mean, he was certainly in a good position. But that's how this game goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now they force the game 3. Gindy will be on the play, which is huge, and Sam is really going to want to have Mental Misstep here.
Yeah.
And of course, timely reinforcement.
Do you think that either player wants to sideboard differently based on the fact that that a different player is on the play? Another thing that a lot of people don't really keep in mind when they're sideboarding nearly enough is whether they're on the play or the draw.
100%. Yeah,
and that's something that your deck operates very differently whether you are the one who's capable of being the aggressor because you're on the play, or you're the one who's forced to deal with what your opponent is doing because you're on the draw.
Right.
That's when for instance when playtesting matchups, a lot of times I'll end up playing 10 games where one player's in the play, 10 games where the other's in the play, just because you sideboard differently. Because the cards you're playing, it matters so much which player's going first.
Yeah, I mean, like if you've played, especially, I mean, in both control mirrors and especially in beatdown mirrors, where you see it a lot, where one player, like if you're in the zoo mirror, say, and someone's on the play, although sometimes it's correct to draw, but if you're on the play, like you're the aggressor and they have to answer your cards. You go into Coddle on turn 1. If you play a Curd Ape on your first turn, then their Nicole's gonna be able to serve it over your Curd Ape, and
you shouldn't have Curd Ape in your deck to begin with. Come on, man. We're talking about good zoo decks here.
Sure, fair enough.
I might be slightly biased.
Or or like if you're playing like play Noble Hierarch on turn 1 in the zoo deck and they can't kill it, like you can just get ahead so quickly.
Well, I mean, even beyond sideboarding. I mean, sideboarding is one of the more subtle areas. Like a lot of people don't really consider strongly enough how good their hand is if they're on the play or draw. Like when you say, "Do you mulligan this hand?" Not enough. You really have to qualify that, whether in limited or constructed, with do you keep this hand on the play? Do you keep this hand on the draw? It's a huge has a huge impact on the value of certain cards, on like how quickly you need to be able to influence the board. A hand, for instance, in say Modern, that plays a turn 2 Knight of the Reliquary, but doesn't have a turn 1 play and doesn't have a reactive card that you can necessarily play otherwise, is an excellent hand on the play against a lot of decks, but on the draw it's way too slow.
Right.
Which seems crazy to say. I mean, which says a lot about that particular format. But if you're playing a turn 2 Knight of the Reliquary against a Storm deck, you're very often dead on their third turn. If you're playing a turn 2 Knight of the Reliquary on the play, and you have like say Knight of the Reliquary plus negate Flash Freeze, just for an example,
if there were
what you might have in your deck. I mean, that's on the play. That's an awesome hand. On the draw, that's terrible. You don't do anything. You can't actually put like a clock on the board and keep mana up. You're never going to be able to play that Knight of the Reliquary. I actually think it's as far as this, going back to the sideboarding thing, it's so significant that I think Knight of the Reliquary cannot be in your deck after sideboarding.
Wow.
Because you can't afford to tap 3 mana on your own turn unless you went first.
Right. And it makes sense to me. If you're going to be on the draw, you just don't want that card. I think there are just a lot of cards that are that way. People don't even think about it. I think one of the biggest ones in Standard, and it's even in the matchup in front of us, is just 2-mana counter spells. Like cards like Mana Leak and Flash Freeze are so much better on the play than when you're on the draw. And especially in a matchup like this. If you're on the draw, you can't hold up 2 mana. You're just behind the gun. You have to react to what they're doing. Or if you're on the play, maybe you can misstep their 1-drop and hold up Flash Freeze for turn 2.
We just got a question on Twitter whether someone you think that you should board out Goblin Guide whether in the play or the draw. In this matchup, I think Goblin Guide's just too good.
Agreed.
I don't think you can afford to take out Goblin Guide. But in, say, the Mono Red Mirror, I think it's possible you don't want your Goblin Guides if you're on the draw.
Even on the play, I don't think you want them.
Sure. That's entirely possible. That's true. In fact, I would guess that's likely true. There's certainly a lot of other sort of aggressive matchups where that sort of thing is true. You're, say, Step Links. You can't afford to have Step Links in your deck if you're on the draw in the Boros Mirror, but it's amazing if you're on the play. Stuff like that, I think, are things that a lot of people don't take nearly enough into account.
And speaking of play and draw, and you mentioned the Mono Red Mirror, I think it's pretty interesting. A lot of times in the Mono Red Mirror, it is actually correct to draw if it's going to be an attrition matchup.
Well, the years ago when Mono Red was more bolts than creatures, which the versions these days are getting relatively close to. It was just 100% correct to draw, because you would never kill someone with a Jackal Pup. You took your Jackal Pups out of your deck. Right. These days, I think there's a little more of an argument for wanting to be on the play. Things like Chandra's Phoenix, things like Hero of Oxid Ridge. They're cards that you could potentially get a relatively significant amount of damage in with. Getting your Shrine on board and ticking up first can matter.
Right.
Being the one who's being proactive with that. Again, I haven't played much with Mono Red in the current Standard to know the exact dynamics of the mirror matchup. But I can certainly imagine that it's entirely possible to draw first.
Right. I mean, I think it's an interesting argument. Looks like players are off to the races. Charles leads on Aaron Mesa after dropping down to 6 cards.
So Sam plays a turn 1 Glacial Fortress, and that's often a sign of something. It's rare that you actually want your first land to be Glacial Fortress. So it's possible that Sam has a hand that is relatively mana light. He can't even bluff at least mana for a mental misstep. He could pay the life, but that's substantially worse. So Shrine comes down. A turn two shrine on the play. He doesn't have a creature, but that shrine threatens to be very, very dangerous if Sam doesn't deal with it. Though we do see an Oblivion Ring in Sam's hand.
So it doesn't tap the fortress usually mean like Tectonic Edge or
right. Like I mean, his hand could very easily be Fortress Edge.
Right.
or basic planes. I mean, it's also possible he just drew that this turn.
Right.
But I mean, you know, the order in which you play your land often says a lot about your hand, and sometimes you actually want to sort of mix up the way in which you play your land to if you think your opponent is actually thinking that far ahead of, okay, he probably has this in his hand,
right,
based on that.
Right, yeah, you can guess a lot of your opponent's plays just solely off of how they play their lands, which is incredible. And I think a lot of the better players can really do that.
Gindy did not play a third land.
You know, no third land, no play that turn.
And Gindy's at lower life. Entirely Reinforcements doesn't do anything.
Yeah, no creatures, no life boost. It's a rough spot. All right, so down comes Squadron Hawk. Now Gindy needs his own timely reinforcements.
Yeah.
So Sam will search up his another copy of Squadron Hawk. As far as the Mono Red Mirror goes, I talked to Glenn Jones, who does coverage for us. He played it at Grand Prix Pittsburgh, made day 2, and he said whenever he played the Mono Red Mirror, he chose to draw, and he felt like it was a good choice.
I mean, I think that absolutely makes sense. So it looks like Gindy found his third land.
Yep, so there we go. There's land number 3.
So I'm curious. I would guess he has a Chandra's Phoenix in his hand, just based on the fact that he kept this hand. And no, it's a Stagger Shock.
Kills the Squadron Hawk. I think I might have seen 3 Incinerates in Charles' hand. Or there's at least there's 2 Incinerates and 2 something else. It looked like 2 Incinerate, 2 Blood Ogre, but I know that can't be the case. So.
Probably not Blood Ogre.
All right, there's
Oblivion Ring takes out that shrine.
Sure, Charles isn't happy about that. He's dealt with it all 3 games. And let's see what Charles collects here.
I see a clear deck building mistake on Charles's part. He has different art for his lands.
Probably added a land at the last minute, you know.
No, he has 2 different.
2 of them.
What is this? This is crazy.
So on Charles's deck list, we see a bunch of crossed out cards, and we thought one of them was Lava Claw Reaches. Perhaps he cut.
I'm almost certain that's Lava Claw Reaches.
So it's very possible he cut black at last minute. It was like, I need 4 more mountains. All right, Hero of Oxiders.
Here comes Hero.
Comes down.
I need a hero.
And there's
dismembered.
Yeah, so I think Charles's hand, as it is left, is 1 hero, 2 Incinerate.
So Sam, pretty stable here. He's at 14 life. He has managed to weather the initial onslaught, deal with that shrine, and
Squadron Hawk.
Yep, he's playing Hawks and pulling ahead here.
Now, I don't think it's unreasonable for Sam to assume that Charles has another hero, because he has to figure, why would Charles keep this hand? There's no Chandra's Phoenix. All he's seen is Shrine of Burning Rage. So a double hero hand is possible.
I mean, he had 2 land in his hand. He missed his 3rd land drop. Having a hand with a bunch of heroes and 2 land isn't particularly exciting, especially on the play.
Right. All right, yeah, Sam just passes back, so plays a 2nd Tectonic Edge.
So I'm guessing he probably has Flash Freeze in his hand, given that he did not play out a 2nd Hawk.
Yeah, he does, I'm pretty sure. And now Charles has to decide, well, do I play this hero into his Flash Freeze, or, how else am I going to win this game? If you're in Charles' position, that's the question you're asking yourself. How do I come back from this? Like, what is my line of play? How do I use these Incinerates that I'm holding on to?
Right. I mean, realistically, he can't try and burn past these Hawks. He needs to try and just get his damage direct to Sam's face, which is pretty difficult to do when you know your opponent has most likely a bunch of timely reinforcements in their deck, and you didn't manage to get much damage in to begin the game.
Right, I mean, Sam's sitting at a pretty comfortable at 14 at this point. And Charles pretty deep in the tank on what his line of action is here. Now, he did draw another card this turn. We don't know what that is. But the rest of his hand is hero, double Incinerate.
I mean, it's... I think you pretty clearly can't just play your hero here.
Right, you just run into a Flash Freeze, and if it gets Flash Rose, and it's going to be almost impossible for you to win.
But at the same time, I mean, if you just sit here with hero in your hand, you're just sort of bottlenecking yourself on mana. You're bottlenecking yourself on plays. I mean, is your play really going to be like go incinerate you, hope at some point you tap out? There's no reason for Sam to tap out. He can just sit here with mana open because you don't have a clock.
I think Charles is probably looking to draw out that flash freeze somehow, but it's going to be Incinerate's probably not going to do it and doesn't have any other action. So unless he drew, say, Ember Hauler or something, it's going to be hard to make that work. We don't know what Charles's fourth card is. He's taking quite a bit of time for this decision. I'd imagine if there's a judge nearby, the last will probably step in at some point soon. I'm trying to see if I can find out what the last card in his hand is, but
yeah, don't really have vision of his hand here. It looks like he's just playing the hero. Oh, yep. Oh, nope.
Thinks
looks
about
like
it.
That's sort of interesting because that's the sort of minor little mind sort of game that you might play if you didn't have a hero.
Right.
Well, do I want you to hold up your mana and not play stuff? But he actually has that hero.
It's like a bluff/tell, depending on how you look at it. All right, so down comes another Hawk for Sam Barth. And Sam will play a Coast tapped and once again lead Flasher's mana up.
Oh, it looks like Charlie has another mountain.
Yeah, not so exciting. All right, there's a Grim Mancer, and maybe that will draw.
Oh, it gets misstepped.
Oh.
That's ugly. Didn't even have to pay life for it.
And he still has Flasher's mana up.
Yep. So yeah, it looks like that last card in Charlie's hand is in fact just a mountain.
Yeah, nothing too exciting. All right, well there's that mountain. All right, and there's the hero.
It comes out quick this time. Boom.
He's like, maybe if I play it fast enough, you won't think.
He's like, no, dude, it has
here.
haste. It's already in play. I played it so fast, it had haste.
Rocket powered turbo slug. All right. Well, now Charles's hand is just 2 incinerates, and he's in a very bad position. He needs to draw like another hero or something here to have a chance.
He needs to draw like a Banefire and 10 land.
Chandra Nalar would be a great draw.
New Chandra would be a pretty sweet card for him right here.
All right, Jace Balerion comes down for Sam. Yeah, New Chandra.
Ping.
Kill your Hawk, kill you. I guess one more land, Chandra Blaze is something you could do.
That wouldn't even be that exciting.
Down comes Squadron Hawk. So Sam's still going to pass with 2 mana up, although I don't think he has
Now he really wants another hero here.
Yep. It is time for a hero.
He needs to sing. I need a hero. He's not singing, I can tell.
Yeah, somehow Charles doesn't strike me as the singing type. Maybe if this was a karaoke bar, we could get him to do it.
So Gindy trying to figure out just how he can pull out of this one.
All right, Incinerate. Probably kill that Jace.
Yep, killing Jace. He's
gone.
still facing down three Hawks that are going to kill him in short order.
5 turn clock currently. If you add another Hawk, I think that turns it into...
1 Hawk's dead, I believe.
Okay, so... Yeah, 1 Hawk down. So 5 turn clock currently. If Sam draws a Colonnade, that speeds it up significantly. If he draws a Gideon, speeds it up significantly. Sam will serve in for 3, dropping Charles down to 11. And a preordain. First sign of auspicious blue common, and he leaves a looks like flash freeze on the top, land on the bottom. So he has another counter spell.
This game is very, very quickly slipping away from Charles Gindy.
Ooh, and another Jace for Sam Barth. Pretty much exactly what he's looking for. He's had almost everything but the Gideon, I think. I had a Colonnade too.
The funny thing is he hasn't actually drawn timely reinforcements this game, and he has not actually had a point in which he was behind in both creatures and life.
Yeah, Charles kept kind of a sketchy 6-card hand on the play, and it did not pan out for him.
Was it 6 cards? Had he mulliganed?
Yeah, he mulliganed down to 6.
Oh, okay. I would certainly keep that hand on 6 cards.
Yeah, it looks like he kept 2 lands, 2 Incinerate, 2 heroes on 6 cards.
Gotcha.
Maybe there's a shrine in there over one of the heroes.
So Gindy in need of drawing something that probably isn't in his deck at this point.
Yeah, looking at Gindy's list, not so hopeful.
Ember Hauler, not really what he needs.
He would need to have boarded and combust to deal with that Celestial Colonnade. And there's a flash freeze on that Ember Hauler.
Yeah, just
Charles
concedes.
just concedes.
So Sam Barth is the winner in round 1. We'll move on to an impressive 1-0, while Charles Gindy has a lot of work to do, starting with a loss in this 10-round Standard Open.
Long round today, 601 players, meaning 10 rounds of Swiss. And under the new Planeswalker point system, that's 21 extra points.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of participation points. Can I sign